Welcome to Behind the Bearcat. This is the podcast where the Northwest Missouri State University Career Services Office chats with Northwest faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends to hear about their career journeys, how they got to where they are, and how they became Bearcats. I'm Career Services Assistant Director Travis Klein.
And I'm Hannah Christian, the Director of Career Services here at Northwest. And today's guest on our show is, drumroll.
Hi, I'm Judy Frueh, and I'm the Assistant Director of Wellness. I oversee the clinic at Northwest, and then I'm also a women's health nurse practitioner.
Welcome, Judy. Yes,
Thank you.
Travis was telling you we've been trying to get you on the show since season 1, but I don't know. Now you just fell into our lap, so we're super excited to be able to chat with you today. Well,
Thank
all
you.
right. What I like to start off with is, can you just walk us through basically your career path? Why did you want to go to college? I mean, I know, haha, surprised that you got your BSN since we did an interview prior to this, but walk us through your path, kind of why you made the choices that you chose in order to get to where you are now.
Okay, sure. So I'm actually grew up in the area, and I in high school I always wanted to get my I wanted to get a degree in something. I actually did some volunteer work at the hospital my freshman year in high school, and then again my junior year in high school, which led me to nursing. My grandmother had been ill, and I'd had helped take care of her as well. So that was kind of where my career path was interested in. We did come to Northwest, my mom and I, to look over the program, which they told us was going to end. And so that left at that time, 1982, that was pretty rare that there was a BSN program in the area. But there was one at Research in Rockhurst in Kansas City, and that happened to be where my grandmother had gone to the hospital a few times. So that's what led me to Research. And that was a great experience. And then I got my degree there. And that program actually had only been in existence. Well, see, I was the third cohort to graduate from there with my BSN. So I came back after I got my degree, and I worked at the hospital actually in Fairfax for a while. And then I went to work for family planning in St. Joe. And they had a satellite clinic in Maryville. And then they asked me if I wanted to go to school to be a nurse practitioner. So they actually paid for me to do my nurse practitioner in Dallas. So I was actually a certificate prepared women's health nurse practitioner. So I did that in 91.
Can
And
I
then,
ask when you say that? So, and you had mentioned before that you didn't think there were any certificate prepared programs anymore, right? Can you
uh-huh.
tell me what coursework or experiences did you have to complete that program?
So you had to have had, I think, 2 or 3 years of being a nurse before they would accept you for the program. And it was a pretty intense program. So we were only in Dallas. I say we because we were, uh, so it was all from federal government. So at that time, the counties that Family Guidance served, there were, I think most of them, if not all of them, were underserved in healthcare because of our region in Northwest part of Missouri. And so they paid the bill, federal government paid the bill for us to go to school. So my focus was only women's health as well as prenatal care. And so because of that, we had to go to Dallas. So people from Iowa, let's see, there was Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas went to Dallas for that schooling. So there was only 18 in the program for us there. And we were there 16 weeks. And then we did a 5.5 months preceptorship. And some of that was with Family Guidance. And then some of that was actually with Jane Dawson here in town, because I had to do some prenatal care with that. So I did that for 5.5 months. And then I took a national certification test to be approved as women's health.
Gotcha.
So now the programs are all master's prepared.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So then I went back and got my master's in 2004 at MU, and at that time it was a master's in nursing with emphasis in public health. So,
So tell me, okay, so you graduated the first time in 1982, right? So you
no, graduated from
from
high
high
school
school.
in
Yeah.
'86.
And
I
okay.
graduated with my BSN.
Okay. So I guess my point here is going back to graduate school as an adult, right? So what was your decision making process behind going back and getting a master's degree as well?
Well, uh, actually, to get my nurse practitioner, I tell this story. My husband, I wasn't interested. They kept asking me about the program at family planning, and I kept saying I wasn't interested. And my husband said, "Why don't you at least bring the?" At that time, it was a brochure or a book, and open it up and look at it. Um, at that time, I had a 2.5-year-old daughter, um, and that was going to be a tough sell for me. So going to Dallas, and I took her. I took her with us. My husband went 10 weeks, and he came back, and then we had a nanny. Um, so anybody that knew me probably that was way out of my comfort zone. Um, but it was a good experience. Got to meet a lot of great people, got great education. I felt like so it was a good experience. But it's challenging and it's hard. And you know, they told us in Dallas because it was a pretty intense program, and I said I felt like um, tennis balls were being thrown at me, and they just kept coming faster and faster and faster. And they assured us when we got there, you were not, if you missed a day of class, you would not be graduating. And so that was the rule. If that's why I needed a nanny because I couldn't be home with my child if she was sick. And actually, you have to do so many exams before you could. That's what we said: 100 exams before you leave Dallas. And that's a lot when you're a student and you're doing a lot of more paperwork as well and getting a lot more education. Um, but it was, yeah, it was a challenge, but it was good. And then even going back for my master's at that point, then I had two children working. I think I was only working part time at that point, but the kids were a lot busier. They were in junior high. And I just remember taking my backpack to every ball game we ever attended, or even just for practice, and study, study, study was the name of the game. So,
I think sometimes this is interesting to me. Sometimes the situations that you have to set up as an adult learner teach you more than the content that you're supposed to be learning, just about discipline and about, you got to make a way to squeeze this in here and there in these little tiny blocks of time. And you have to, hey, I need you to write a 25-page paper. And you're like, well, I better be writing 10 pages today. I'm not
yeah,
leaving this desk until I sit down and write my 10 pages because you don't have any other option. There's no
right.
free time to go do something.
So I would often sit in the living room while the kids may be watching TV, have my earplugs in, so at least I was still with them, but I'd be studying. Another thing, after they went to bed, then I would put in 2 to 3 hours of studying. Sometimes I'd do it in the morning because when I was in Dallas, that's what I'd do. I'd get up like at 4 in the morning and study before I go. Um, one time I wrote some kind of reflection, and then the instructor actually called me in. Are you okay? I think I was pretty bummed that morning, I guess. So yeah, you do what you have to do, and I think it does show your family. I think the kids saw the value of it. So
They're seeing what it actually takes to get something done in terms of your education, like that you're willing to sacrifice, I don't know, watching your fifth Law and Order episode rerun. I don't know, that was just me, but you're sacrificing lots of little pleasures to be able to do something that's an investment in yourself, an investment in your own learning.
mm. And I did try to explain to the kids too. It was an investment in us as a family because each time you would go back, it would benefit you financially as well. So,
Yeah. So
So
tell us how you got to Northwest.
that was going to
Sorry,
be my
Travis.
question too. No, that's perfect.
So the ironic part of that is the medical director at the time, Dr. Wilmus. Actually, I ran into him as on a fluke, and he asked if I was interested in doing some work out here. And at that point, I was a women's health nurse practitioner. So I originally started working here 4 hours a week because they had somebody that was coming up from St. Joe doing a day a week. And then shortly after I started, she decided to quit. I really think she was tired of the drive and she didn't want to say no. But when she found out there was somebody else there, then she said she'd back out. And so then I ended up getting that part. And then in that process, while I worked here, I also worked hospice for a while. I did regional response planning, preparing for, ironically, a pandemic um, before we knew there was a pandemic coming along. And let's see, what else did I do? Oh, I did some even teaching with Trenton too, with some OB stuff. So I did a variety of stuff with that.
And so now
So anyway,
you're the assistant director of the wellness center. So what and all does that entail? I would assume that you're in a leadership position. So are you hiring folks, or what are you doing
yes,
exactly?
so we have actually four nurses, full-time nurses. So right now they're all RNs. We also, I've hired some family nurse practitioners. We do some contract work where we have some staff come from Mosaic. In my tenure here, we also, when our medical director retired, then I worked with Mosaic to find another medical director. Um, then also, I still see patients. I see patients 8 to 10 hours a week, as well as the leadership part of it. So we do have some student workers I oversee, and then we also I do a lot with the internships. So we for many years now we've had 2 to 3 interns each semester. So those students usually are going into like RN, or they want to go get their RN, PA, NP, just different stuff like that. So we have those students as well.
How do they discover those, or do they just reach out to you if they are looking for an internship?
Correct. A lot of them I work with the School of Health Sciences because they need an internship to graduate. And then we also sometimes we'll get students from just like the allied health uh, field. We've had some students that maybe aren't in the School of Health Sciences, but they're still interested in doing that track. And then they'll come through on a different way, but they still do some internship. And then most of our student workers here are also looking at to doing some health care. So they get that experience as well if we have student workers.
Even in this setting, if they're sitting at the desk, right? In terms of like an office assistant position, it's good to have
Mhm.
reception experience, any type of experience with patients in that type of setting, I would imagine.
Yes, I agree. And a lot of our student workers, even in the back, we call it, or in our clinical area, some of them will do vital signs. Some of them will finish up different labs. And I think any of that, even just ordering supplies and being more familiar with the terminology and the different supplies we need, it'd be helpful for somebody that's going on. And we're rather proud of our students that have gone on and become RNs, and we just feel like that we've helped grow them, I guess, if you will.
What are some of the maybe if someone's not familiar with wellness services and some of the services that you have, what are some of the things that you offer students right here on campus at the wellness center?
Sure. So again, I oversee the clinic. So we have patients. So we see probably about 30 to 40 patients a day in the clinic. That can be a variety of things. It can be whether they need immunizations. It can be they're sick. We do a lot of mental health care. Occasionally, we'll do like if they've been to the emergency room and they need follow up care, we do that. Preventive health care, like I say, I do the women's health stuff. I also do guy and girl sexually transmitted infections or any issues with that. Um, so I think that's the part of on the clinic side. And then we also have counselors in our office as well. So we try to do everything holistically. So we have that available too if people are interested in that. And then I do some work also as far as, well, we do have a separate with wellness education and prevention. I do some of that as well. Like I helped with the Stress Less Fest. We just did a presentation with the new international students to let them know of different services that's available. Um, so some different stuff like, oh, we have a don't cancel the class kind of opportunity. So I do some of those as well. So it's kind of like jack of all trades, but it's good
Hmm.
to get out there and so people can see you as well. And it's good to meet the students in a different setting.
Yeah, you guys do a ton of events. I mean, I know we like to pride ourselves on our events and career services, but then I look at how many you guys do in wellness services, plus see patients, plus do all that stuff, and it's kind of amazing. So yeah, you guys are definitely doing a lot of the education on campus for health stuff too, which I know sometimes that's better than the cure. Like if you can prevent it, that's better.
Right. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a fun job.
If you could tell a student something that maybe from the wellness perspective would be beneficial to them in terms of maybe they don't know something that you see often or some pieces of information that maybe could be really helpful to students that they don't know, what would that be?
Um, get sleep. Uh, I think
Oh wait, that's staff too.
yeah, people underestimate the power of sleep, and you get 7 to 9 hours nightly. You can't bank that. So that's my big mantra: water and sleep, and 30 minutes of exercise. And I think somebody told me the other day there, what you do between your 20s and your 50s is going to matter to your health after 50.
Oh.
But people don't really realize that. But I think you just got to take care of yourself in those little bitty ways. So I think that's beneficial because you just don't think straight. You're tired and things are a lot worse. Things look a lot worse when you're tired. So I think that's the piece I would recommend. And then I also would recommend uh, volunteer. I think there's a lot of opportunities for volunteering, and then you can decide. We see students. We unfortunately we do see students that come in here to work, and they decide this isn't what they want to do. But that's not a bad thing. You've now eliminated something, and that's good. Before you go on down and decide spend more money and spend more time and deciding this is I don't think this is what I like.
You
So
got paid to figure that out. That's what
Mhm.
I tell students. You got paid to figure out something you don't like to do.
yeah. So, yeah.
So you
So
mentioned hiring interns, and I know that you do a lot of stuff with interns. When you're looking at those students, are there skills, experiences, things like that really help somebody have a chance to get one of those on-campus internships with the Wellness Center, or is it just willingness to put themselves out there?
probably a little of both. So I know, right? I mean, the students are still trying to get experience, so we're probably not going to see a lot of that. It may be a fluke if we already have somebody that's like got their nursing aid or some experience with that. So what I'm looking for, I guess, is well, good references that can tell me that they're prompt, they're determined, that they're willing to work. That's important. I know one student that I had, one of their comments from their reference was that she's very shy. And knowing that helped me lead her. And she was one of my best workers, but I felt like I'm glad I heard that from a reference, so I knew how to boost her up and see if it. And she ended up, like I said, she was excellent once we got going with her. So I think that's piece of it is just being willing to put yourself out there and working when you get here because we'll see some people that really aren't happy being here, and that's okay. But we need to move on, and so we have somebody that's dedicated. I think things here it's important that there are a big confidentiality because we have student workers seeing students, and that's something we pride ourselves on that we do keep everything confidential. But I've been amazed at some of the students that have come through here to work. Their work ethic is great, and our future looks good when I see some of those students, and I'm very proud of them.
When you're hiring students, I like talking about this on the podcast because it's good to have a wide variety of comments from hiring managers, right? Especially in terms of on-campus employment, because it is a very, very competitive space. I don't think that people really know until they get on campus how competitive those student employment positions are. Can you tell me what kinds of qualities you look for? Maybe not necessarily specific to your area, but just in terms of you're going through an interview with a candidate. What impresses you about a candidate, a student specifically?
So on paper, what impresses me that they add a cover letter and a resume. That's will get them probably a little bit more likely to be interviewed.
What
Um,
about a cover letter? Because I'm gonna hammer this point here. I tell students all the time, even if they're applying for an on-campus job or a real like their first professional job, even if it doesn't ask for a cover letter, send one. So I'm interested in what about the cover letter helps you, or what do you like
so
about that?
what I think I want to see in a cover letter is why they want to work with us. And sometimes I see people cut and paste and then they're saying they want a different job that this isn't even what they've applied for. So that to me, but did you read what I was looking for in a person? And put that in the cover letter why I should interview you because like you said, we may get 50 applicants, so we're not going to be able to interview all those. So that's a piece of that. Also, I do like to see if they've worked somewhere else. I don't care if it's Dairy Queen. I do like to see that because then that can tell me if they're used to it or not. So I think used to some kind of work, and probably too, if they were busy, even if they don't have any work experience, if they were busy in high school, whether that be athletes, band, drama, anything like that, that can tell me they can multitask and they can keep their grades up, which is important too. So I think those are some of the things I like to see on paper. When I interview, dress up like be on time, or be on time means be 10 minutes early, um, and dress
Note to
up.
self for my next meeting with Judy.
And dress like it's a professional interview because it really is. Then I think also eye contact, and then just I we ask them maybe some strange questions. I don't know if they are, but I think it's interesting the depth some people go and the not so depth people go. So be okay to put yourself out there a little bit.
What's one of the just an example of one of the strange questions? I don't want to give away your secrets, but just what's maybe one of the
Um,
types of questions?
I think one of them is tell us about a time that you had difficulty learning a task and how did you move forward with it. That's one of them I think that we asked the student. Um, and then we do ask about any experience, and I can't remember the exact wording, like with diversity. Tell us
Mhm.
about a time that you worked with maybe a diverse population. Um, because we are curious how they work with students like that. And then, of course, we do something like confidentiality as well and professionalism. I think we ask a question on professionalism. What's professionalism and confidentiality mean to you?
So all things you can prepare for, people that are applying for
Right.
jobs. You can prepare for
Absolutely.
all of those questions and should.
Right. And a good thing, I always tell my I always told my kids this, and I try to follow it too. In an interview, silence is okay.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So
Excellent. Well, fantastic. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And that'll do it for another episode of Behind the Bearcat. And we will talk to you next time.
thank you.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to give us a thumbs up below. That helps out. Also, if you've not done so yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Also, we'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find Behind the Bearcat on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Plus, the audio podcast comes out on Fridays on all the major podcast platforms. Thanks again for watching Behind the Bearcat. And as always, we'll talk to you next time.